What would you say to those people who are still not won over by your argument? What would you say to them? Have you got something else to try to convince them?
So I will reiterate the point that my view isn't necessarily the correct view. It's an opinion. It's something that's worked for me. And as I keep saying, there's a difference between a private maktab and a maktab which is adjacent to or running under a masjid. And there's different kind of dynamics going on there. So if we can introduce storybooks into mainstream maktab, I think that that would be really, really beneficial. Now, sometimes I think that it would have been better for me if I voiced this opinion before my book went on sale, because it does seem a bit disingenuous. To some people, may seem to some people, they might think this guy is just trying to flog his book. And I've always said that, look, yes, I do need to sell my book, but alhamdulillah, my book's selling well without the maktabs taking my book. Alhamdulillah, I think I'll get through this whole stock. So there is that aspect of it that I've invested my own time and money. So a person wants to see his own book succeed anyway. But sometimes I do wish that I didn't have that kind of a stake in it. Sometimes I wish I didn't have my book on the market, so that people wouldn't think that this guy's just trying to flog his book. But the thing is, I don't think there are many or any books that are suitable for the maktab. Well, that's not to say that books aren't written well. That's not to say that I'm the best author out there or anything. Far from it. But if you listen to the first podcast that I did with Ismail Mu'min, what I was saying is that in terms of Islamic fiction, you get the two extremes. One is that it's too preachy, too down your throat, too in your face, complete turn off for the kids. And then you get the other extreme where it's promoting dating and lewdness and stuff. So this is like a middle ground. It's not an Islamic book per se, but it's got topics which it's got nods towards Islam and Islamic teachings and the Islamic culture, which are points for discussion and explanation from the teacher and classroom discussions and things like that. So, yeah, I think that this is the way forward. I firmly believe that from my own experience and after giving it a lot of thought, I think it will eventually happen anyway. But the sooner it's done, the more beneficial it will be. So, in response to your question, what do I have for those people who are still not won over by my argument? Well, I would say to those people, those alims and alimas, if they're alims and alimas, then and practitioners, they're teaching, then think back to your Darloom experience. Right? Those alims and alimas who have studied in Darloom, think back to your experience. So, for example, I'll speak of my experience. Before you went into the next year, you would speak to the senior pupils and you'd ask them, that, I'm going into Arabi Dome. What's it like? And for some of those years of the 7-8 year course that we did, they tell us that, it's such a dry year. The kitabs are so dry. But you're lucky you've got Riyadh al-Salihin, right? Other than that, all the kitabs, you've got Mantiq, you've got Mebzi, you've got Nurul Anwar and Sharia Qaid, and those were considered dry kitabs, Mukhtasar al-Ma'ani, and those were considered hard-going kitabs, dry kitabs. But if you think back, the year in which you were going to have Maqamat Hariri, or the year in which you were going to have Qasasul Nabiyyin, about those years, the seniors would tell you that, it's a great year, you'll enjoy it, right? So, for example, when I was, soon after I started, before I went into Arabi Awal, I was doing Urdu Dome at the time, and then when I'd ask the seniors, they'd say, you got Qasasul Nabiyyin coming up. That's a good one to look forward to. Why? Because they're stories, and they're told really well. Molana Abul Hasan Nadwi rahmatullahi did a fantastic job. And the same was the case with Maqamat Hariri. Now I remember about Maqamat Hariri. One of the elders came to an ijtima, and whenever the elders used to come, then they'd come and deliver a bayan in the students. And so I don't know what the context was, what he was talking about, but he said that, he was saying that all these kitabs that you're studying, they're vehicles towards understanding Quran and Hadith. And then he said, for example, Maqamat Hariri kya hai, So he goes, he's a chor, he's a daku, he's an alcoholic, he's a pickpocket, Abu Zaid Saruji, Haris ibn Hammam, right? And I didn't understand that. And, the kids laughed and everything. But he was saying that, look, the why you study, the question arises, why are you studying that? Because it's a vehicle towards getting a better grasp of the Arabic language and understanding the depth of the Arabic language. And this will help you better understand the hadith. Right? So I had to go then to the senior pupils and ask them that, what's he talking about? Who's Abu Zaid Saruji? Who is this guy? And they said that, yeah, you love it when you get there. Yeah, he's a fraud. He's a chor. He's a daku. He's a con artist. He's a charlatan. But yeah, he's so. But that I don't think you'll find anyone from the people who've gone through Dars in Nizami. I don't find you find anyone who'll talk bad about Maqamat Hariri. Right? Even the the boys or girls who didn't want to be in madrasa, or those who were not trying so hard, or those who are not very clever, academically challenged or whatever. So they might, we all badmouth mantiq. Yeah, what a waste of time that was. People say Sharia Qaid, although I enjoy Sharia Qaid immensely, but most people say, oh, Sharia Qaid, or Mukhtasarul Ma'ani, oh man, why did we have to do that kitab, right? But you'll never find anyone badmouthing Maqamat Hariri and Qasasun Nabiyyin, right? Why? Because they're stories. People love stories, and it
piques the enthusiasm and the curiosity.
This is where the idea of introducing books into the syllabus has partly come from. I think, well, if we did that in Darul, the stories were not just for the sake of story time, but they had a pedagogic value to them. They were there for a reason. In the same way here as well, introducing storybooks have got to have. We're not saying bring mice and men, and To Kill a Mockingbird and these books into your maktab and get kids to read that. He's got to have some academic value. He's got to have some dini value, and so on and so forth, which to some extent this book 7 Down 6 Up does. I've explained in the previous podcast that it will improve their reading skills, their literacy levels, they've expand their vocabulary, but at the same time that Islamic element is there in a subtle way, which the ustads and the appas can very easily open up for discussion and projects and stuff. And as I've said, I'd be happy to come into any maktab and talk about the book, talk to the students free of charge, and I've also got documents in which it's like a booklet for parents and for practitioners, for teachers, whereby what questions to ask and how this book can be used, and I've related to each chapter. For example, the chapter on chapter's called the rumor mill spins, right? So it's about how then everyone starts gossiping after that particular incident with Mrs. Jennings. So there's a thing on there. It's quite a short chapter, but then the open for discussion. The question to the children is that Safura or Safiya or one of the Muslim kids, they didn't join in with the gossip. They didn't spread rumors. They held their tongue. Why was that? So then the kids would say that because it's ghibat. And then what is ghibat? And then you can do a whole thing on that, and ask the kids to research the harms of ghibat and why it's haram and things of that nature. So like that, we relate to many different things in the book. I've got activities or points for discussion and so on. So yeah, relate it back to your Darul life and think about Abu Zaid Zaruji and Haris ibn Hammam, Qasas al-Nabiyyin, and any other story books that we had, and how it motivated us, how it made us look forward to the lesson, and how it piqued our curiosity and kept us engaged. And then so Maqamat Hariri we had in 1 year. That was like the Arabic literature, right? And then for Arabic literature the next year we had Dewan Hamasa, right? And Dewan Hamasa was the same kind of thing, eloquent Arabic and stuff like that. But most people found it a real bore and the senior students would tell you in advance, oh man, you got Diwani Hamasa. That's just poems about fighting, man. Just dead boring, right? But so the both of those books are vehicles for increasing literacy depth in Arabic, and yet the reaction of the students is different. People love Maqamat al-Hariri. Why not? Because it's really, really difficult Arabic, and it really expands one's ability and dictionary skills, and vocabulary and words you can hardly pronounce, and things of that nature. But but the fact that they were stories, and because of that, we even went to the extent of because the ustad before us, he used to make his classes memorize the maqamat. Molana Abul Qasim Sahab Damat Barkat, and then he used to make his students memorize the maqamat, because he was a big supporter of expanding the memory, and how it's a muscle, how the brain's a muscle, and memorizing will only increase your capacity, your ability to memorize. So, but when we got to Maqamat al-Hariri, Molana, the kitab was transferred over to Molana Naim Sahab Adibi, rahmatullah, Allah Ta'ala grant him Jannat. So Molana Naim Sahab didn't expect us to memorize it by heart, and yet the kitab was so interesting that some of us, of our own accord, started memorizing the maqamat, and I know that others in my class did so, and people thereafter as well in the years below us. I remember some of my friends, they were memorizing it, and till this day I can quote some of the, how many years has it been? It's been almost 30, it has been 30 years, and yet فرأيت في بهرة الحلقة شخصا شخط الخلقة عليه أهبة الصياحة وله رنة النياحة وهو يتبع الأسجاع بجواهر لفظه ويقرع الأسماع بزواجر وعظه. See, still got it. And what was the other one? فما راقني من لاقني بعد بعده ولا شاقني من ساقني لوساله ولا لاح لي ولا لاح لي ند ولا لاح لي ند لفضله ولا ذو خلال حاذ مثل خلاله. I still got it. What was the other one? Another one's coming to my head as well. فقلت له زدني إيضاحا عشت ونعشت. So the reason why we memorized it and enjoyed it so much is because they were fantastical tales of fiction. It was just made up stories, but they had a plot, they had a twist, and they were interesting. So that's why I hope I've kindled some people's memories, fond memories. But yeah, that's my argument. I think that a book needs to be introduced, or books need to be introduced. From my research, I haven't found books that are suitable for the Maktab system. So I've written this one, and I'm working on the next ones. But if there are, you don't have to buy my book. If you find another book that you think isn't too preachy, it's not on one extreme, and it's not too, liberal, then by all means introduce it. But whichever books you introduce, but I think this is the way forward, keeping our kids engaged, motivated, interested, and also at the same time educating them and imparting Islamic views to them. I hope that, but as I say, you don't have to agree with me. I'm not necessarily right, but I'm just speaking from my own thoughts and my own reflection and my own experience.